Hey everyone, this is Frank. Welcome back to Raijintek. Today I have a bit of a vlog style video for you guys because basically soon I'm going to be setting up a home server, and whereas I have some of the hardware right now, I don't quite have all of it. So what I'm going to do is use the hardware I do have with some spare hardware I have lying around to set up a bit of a Ghetto NAS/server just sitting on my desk as a bit of a practice run for when I build and set up my actual server, so that when it comes to doing that, I have some idea about what I'm doing, because right now I have no idea about what I'm doing. So it's going to be a bit of a learning experience for me, and I thought I may as well vlog it so you guys can come along for the ride. Okay, here's some of the hardware we're going to be using for the Ghetto NAS. We have a Biostar 1155 motherboard, that's for an upcoming project. Pretty cool board actually from Biostar, pretty cheap off of AliExpress if you're looking for a cheap 1155 board. The CPU is just some old Pentium. I put it in here to keep the pins safe, but it's actually the best 1155 CPU I have on hand at the moment. So we're going to be using that. For RAM, we're going to be using, one of these is 8 gigs, one of them's 4 gigs. 8 gigs of HyperX Fury. Again, that's for the same project as this board actually, and thermal paste, that will do. I need some thermal paste for the CPU cooler. Shit. We'll use this. This is an R9 290X. I put this cooler on there to test if it works. It doesn't, and it's just been sitting there looking cool. So we'll cut that cooler off of there. I actually have mounting hardware for that cooler. We'll use that slightly less Ghetto option. We're not using this graphics card. Don't need that. Hard drives, we have 3 2TB hard drives. There are 2 WD Red 2TB and this Hitachi 2TB hard drive, which is currently plugged into my main rig because I was backing up the data on it from there. Basically just finding anywhere to store my data. What else? Power supply. There. This is for the actual server. It looks like a banged up piece of junk, I know, but it's an Antec, it's good efficiency, it's really, really friggin' quiet, and modular power cables. If you want to see a tutorial on how to make your own modular power supply cables, then let me know, because I do have the video for it, I just don't think it's worth editing at the moment. I think that's about it. Let's get started, right? Oh, and I have the hypervisor I'm going to be using on this 8 gig USB stick. I'm going to be using ESXi, basically because it's free and meant to be pretty good. It's pretty bare bones, but it's going to let us use FreeNAS, and I think we can run pfSense on here as well, which is why I want to use it. Basically going to set up a couple of virtual machines using that. While I'm setting up this hardware, I'm just putting the CPU cooler on right now. I'll explain in a bit more detail what I intend to do here. So I'm going to have this system with this motherboard, 8 gigs of RAM, a dual core CPU, and 3 2TB hard drives just sitting on my desk, connected to my network, so that I can back up data, transfer data to and from those hard drives. As well as that, I want these drives to run in parity, so that if one of them dies, I don't lose a shit ton of data. I'm doing this all wrong. I don't lose a shit ton of data. And have access to all of my data as a network drive. It's going to be backed up, it's going to be safe, it's going to always be there. It can run as a Plex server. In the future home server, it's going to be running as my router as well as another virtual machine. I'll be using pfSense to run a router, so I can stop using the one that Virgin Media provided. Yeah, that's basically the idea. So let's finish putting this all together, shall we? Alright, my camera battery died, sorry about that, but I did keep working into the night and I did get FreeNAS set up and running on a VM within ESXi. However, I did forget something that I remembered at that point. So I did all the research for this a few weeks ago. I wasn't expecting to set this up. I didn't really refresh my brain very well on all the things I want to be doing. So the reason I wanted to run ESXi was because I wanted to run two VMs, FreeNAS and pfSense. And some of you who may have dealt with that before will already know what I'm about to say, and that is that I don't need ESXi at all whatsoever, because FreeNAS can run VMs and I can run pfSense in a VM within FreeNAS. And in fact, running FreeNAS on a VM is actually problematic because passing the physical hard drives to the virtual machine is quite challenging and it's a bit kludgy, and it's not worth doing unless you absolutely have to, which I don't. So I have FreeNAS set up, installed, running. Well, it's not running now, I have switched it off the machine, but I did get a RAID Z1 setup going with my three 2TB hard drives, giving me essentially 4 TB of usable space when I've lost one of those drives to redundancy. That setup is then shared on my network, and I even connected my main rig to it to give me a network drive with backed up redundant storage. However, this was all a few days ago, and since then the very predictable has happened. The girlfriend has literally pulled the plug on my Ethernet running through the center of the flat system. So I need to come up with a more creative solution for wiring the network in this room, because at the moment I have no wired connection in here. It's going to be very problematic to run this server without a wired connection. And that is what this long ass Ethernet cable is for. So instead of running it through the center of the flat, which is a no-no, what I do have permission to do is chuck it out the window, pass it 2 rooms down and through the window in that room where the router is, and then I'll have a gigabit connection from the router to this room, no problem. Okay, minor problem. I'm on the 3rd floor, so I can't just pass it out the window and walk it across and through the other window. Instead, we have to be a bit more creative. So the current plan is to stick a spoon out of the window in the other room, because it has a hook on the end, maybe duct tape it to the window ledge or something, and then lasso the hook on the end of the spoon with the Ethernet cable. And if that sounds crazy to you, well then good, because nobody should try this ever. Sorry if there's a lot of background noise with the window open. And as you can also see, I've had to upgrade from using a spoon because it wasn't nearly long enough. And instead, I have an epee here. So I do fencing, this is one of my swords, and it is duct taped to the windowsill and as an added security measure, because if this were to fall out the window onto the floor, it would be very bad. Not only could it hit somebody, but these things are bloody expensive. So I also have it tied from the grip to my Windows handle, just so if it does happen to fall, it's just going to dangle there and it's not going to murder anybody. So we're in the room with my router now, and I've got my long ass Ethernet cable hanging out the window, and I've got to swing it over to catch it. I got to get a lot of cable out the window, and then I've got to swing it to catch on the sword. This is significantly more difficult than I thought. No way. Oh shit, we did it. Oh, fuck yes. Oh yeah, got me a fucking live one, baby. Oh, that's so tenuously on there. Because the wire came coiled up, it's kind of just curled around the sword. That is sweet. Come on, there we go. Now, if you're wondering if I should have used a special outdoor Ethernet cable, then, well, yeah, that is technically the best practice, but there's a lot of misinformation that goes around about these outdoor Ethernet cables. Basically what they are is they're thicker and they're filled with a gel, and the purpose for this gel isn't to like absorb ultraviolet radiation from sunlight or anything. It's purely there because the PVC sheathing around the cables can get cracked over time as it gets damaged by UV from the sunlight. And the purpose of the gel is so that if it does crack, the gel then protects the wires inside from other things like moisture or anything else that can damage the wires themselves that carry your connection. So it's really a very long-term protection thing, and professionals will tell you that you need to use it if you're running outside cable, but this is only going to be here for like 6 months, and yeah, it's really, I'm not too worried about it, and if I were you, I wouldn't worry about it either. Okay, the server is set up with the new network connection. Of course, nothing's actually changed for the system itself, it's just a new Ethernet cable. So it's running perfectly fine, and basically the first form of the server is complete. This is definitely its Ghetto form. I mean, I have this 80mm fan here to cool my network card, just a random drive cage from a case that I'm using to mount my hard drives and cool them. It is super Ghetto. It's sitting on a box on my desk, but it's doing everything I want my server to do. So I have that dual-core CPU on there. I'll just run down what I actually have and what it's doing. I have the dual-core CPU on there, which is a Sandy Bridge dual-core, two-threaded 2.9 GHz CPU. So really old, kind of crappy and slow, but it tops out at 45% usage when I'm writing to my storage array via a gigabit Ethernet connection. So 45% is actually not that bad. It's more than I would like to be doing, writing from one machine to the storage array, but I won't be doing much more than that. As well as that, I have the quad port NIC. So what is happening with this is that these 4 ports are bridged with the onboard port. So the onboard port here is what's connecting the server to my router. So it's connecting it to my router as well as the internet. And because it's bridged with these 4 ports, essentially it's creating a pass-through situation where anything connected here will get subsequently connected to my router. And that's pretty fantastic, because what it means is I can wire the internet in this room with this essentially acting as a network switch. And it does a pretty good job of it. So my latency is actually better with this. I'm consistently getting about 2 or 3 milliseconds latency when going from my main rig to my router, which is pretty damn good considering the configuration here. So I have those 3 2TB drives in here set up in a RAID Z1 file system. So that gives me about 3.6 terabytes of usable storage. And one of these drives can get knocked out, whether by dying or me just unplugging it, and I won't lose any data, which is fantastic. That is what we want here. As well as that, I'm able to read and write from any system on my network. And the way you do that is you set up a network shared folder. So through FreeNAS or whatever operating system you want to use on your server, you can set up a shared folder. So I'm using an SMB share here so that I can access it on all of my Windows machines on my network. This is exactly what I need this for. I have good redundant storage so that even if I have a hard drive fail on me, I don't lose any data. That storage is accessible via my local network so that all of my machines can access the media I have stored on here. They can back up to here so that my backups are safe. That is fantastic. I have a quad port NIC acting as a network switch, so not only is this a file server, it's also able to distribute a connection to my local network and the internet to any machine I want to plug in here. That's going to be fantastic for when I'm building PCs and having them get set up in this room. It's fantastic. I'm so happy just because I know that everyone knows you can do this. This isn't groundbreaking, but it's proof of concept for me that I can achieve this. So I know that I can achieve this when it comes to building my server later on. But of course, I'm not finished with this because I've still got to tinker. I still have other things I want to try out to see if they're going to work, to figure out what is best for me, what I want to be doing with this server. But as for this video, I'd say mission accomplished. I did not think I would get a lot of this working by the end of this video. Thanks a lot for joining along the ride. I hope you had some fun watching me be stupid. This is basically what I do when it comes to setting things up for myself. It is absolute garbage, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, which I'm sure you do, because I really haven't explained much in this video, hit me up in the comments. I'm going to answer every single one that I can. So any question whatsoever, just ask away. I'm learning this stuff, so I'm happy to try and dole out whatever I've learned to anyone else who wants to learn too. But yeah, thanks for watching this video. This has been Frank Yeager with Yeager Tech. Have a good one.